Tonight on Newswire L.A., the how-tos of buying and selling property. We team up with an expert who's going to tell us all of the inside steps. All of this and more coming up right after the credits. Hi, and welcome to Newswire L.A. I'm your host, Chin Thomasangsi. Since 2008, it's been extremely difficult for people to buy and sell property in the state of California and anywhere in the United States. The subprime mortgage crash caused everything to change overnight. All of us here at Newswire L.A. felt that there should be some kind of how-to guide that tells people what they should do step by step from the time they decide to buy a house to the time they get the keys. So we teamed up with a real estate expert who's going to tell us tonight what we should do step by step. This is the first of two shows devoted to this entire process. Without further delay, let's go to Highland Park and our Tricia Mitchell.
Hi, I'm Tricia Mitchell with Newswire L.A., and we're here today with Frank Del Castillo, realtor with Century 21, and we're going to talk about what it is like to purchase a house for the first time. Good afternoon, Frank. How are you today?
Very good. It's a pleasure to be here with you and to be meeting with you to discuss the trends in real estate.
Awesome. First, let's start with you. Tell us why you decided to get into real estate.
Well, this is a really interesting story. Actually, during my while I was in high school, I was a part-time janitor at a real estate office with a friend of mine who actually ran a janitorial service, and we cleaned real estate offices and during the evening times. And I started inquiring to the realtors, how did you become a realtor? What's it like to be a realtor? And as time went on, I was still in high school my senior year back in 1984, and I put real estate in the back of my head thinking, well, one day maybe I will get my license. And just by being around those people and seeing homes and everything like that, I got exposed to real estate. And back in 1995, I had a friend, a lady friend who was a mentor to me in real estate. She was a loan officer. She ran a Century 21 many, many years ago. And she said, why don't you get your real estate license? And it was funny. I said, I thought about that almost 10 years ago. Took the test. Took me a couple times to pass it. And next thing I know, I'm at Century 21 back in 1996.
And speaking of our economy, the housing market crashed a good few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you at that particular time, and how did it affect you?
Well, that was a very difficult time for many realtors. I don't have actual data and facts on that, how many either stopped selling real estate and how many actually took advantage and went into real estate to help people that really needed a realtor. So many people actually started kind of in a state of fear because after what the crash did to them, many people started to sell their homes, try to hang on to their homes. They tried to refinance. They tried to modify their loans. I saw a lot of people. I should say this. I saw a big trend in foreclosures, short sales, and then there were some standard sales.
Now, we don't hear the term short sell a lot. We usually hear just buy and sell. Could you explain to our viewers what a short sale is?
It's funny because a short sale, they should call it a long sale because it takes a long time to actually get that short sale. The owner of the property owes more than the house is worth. So then the owner will, let's say, employ a realtor, and the realtor will get a short sale packet. They will put together a presentation for the seller. They will contact the bank. They say they're going to list the property. The bank actually holds the note. They will list the property as a short sale, and then they discuss with the bank what kind of price that the bank will take, at the end, because there's loans that have to be paid off, etc. And it takes quite a while sometimes to close a short sale.
What happens to the upside down part of the money? Who is ultimately responsible for that?
Every transaction is different, so it depends on what kind of what the bank is actually going to propose to to the seller, to the person in the home. From my understanding, there's also been programs called like Cash for Keys, where the bank is actually going to give the seller a few $1,000s so they can have some moving expenses, because when they sell their home in a short sale, there's really no profit for the seller, right? For the seller. So that owner is going to move on. But there was a transaction recently of a person I actually personally know who was working with another realtor far out, and she actually lost her property. It was a business, and the realtor represented her, sold the property, and the bank that had the note gave her roughly about $3,000 of moving expenses. So she was able to have some money in pocket and move on.
I'm a first-time buyer. My credit's pretty good.
Right.
And I would like to buy my first home. What would you say to me before we even actually meet to even look at houses or even talk about or even do a credit check? Because I know there's some things that you have to go through. What would you say to me, say, for example, in a phone conversation about what I need to have ready for you?
Well, this is the great question that you asked, because this comes up a lot. Step one, whenever someone's calling me and says, I'd like to purchase a home, and they will sometimes throw out random figures of 300, 400, even 500,000. That's what I would like to buy. I'd like to buy in this area. And the first question comes up is, have you been pre-qualified? Have you gone to your bank? Have you met with your lender? And the first thing I tell them to do is go to your bank, who you bank with. You might even want to get a second opinion. You can even consult with an independent broker that does loans. And I always recommend go to at least 2 people, have them go through the whole pre-qualification process from running your credit. They can actually tell you what your debts are, what you owe, what you do with your income, how much are you going to qualify. Because the one big thing is you don't want to send the prospective buyer, even as a realtor, going with them or even letting them go on their own, showing them homes that they can't qualify for. Because that is the biggest, it's a downer. It's a waste of gas and time and energy. And I can just say, get pre-qualified with your bank. Get pre-qualified with your bank. And it's rule number 1, get pre-qualified. See how much house you really can afford. So that, because the banks don't want you to lose your home. The bottom line, they don't want you to lose your home.
They're not in the business of
Right.
housing. They're in the business
Right.
of money.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I'm pre-qualified,
Right.
and I say, hey, I've got my pre-approval letter. Let's do this. What's the next step?
Well, the next step is to meet with the realtor and go over certain homes, what you want, what you like, what area, get a list of homes that qualify. And the one thing that the realtor can do to save the buyer a lot of time is to actually preview or pre-qualify that home, meaning let's find out if that home is still available. Don't send buyers off to homes that are not available. And there's a lot of homes that we may not know the status of them. They could be going into escrow and they may show availability, but the best thing a realtor can do for that client in the client's interest is to make it a win-win situation for the realtor and the buyer. Call all the homes that this buyer would like to see. Ask the realtor, the listing agent, is the property available? And yes, no. At that point, make those appointments. If they're vacant, even better, and go out and with the client, show them the property.
When a first-time buyer, or anyone for that matter, is looking for a real estate agent, do they go into Penny Saver and just scan their hand and pick someone, or what would you recommend to a first-time buyer to check out about the realtor that they choose to go with, especially in terms of licensing?
Right. Well, now with the advent, of course, of the internet, there's so much information available to any person that is buying. There are a lot of websites that people actually have gone on to, like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com. What I also too, if I'm going to put myself in the perspective, if I was the buyer and I saw a house and I had no realtor, the first thing I would do is I would call probably one of my trusted friends or even family members and say, who represented you on your purchase? And I'm coming from the perspective that I'm going to buy the property, and I would get feedback from them. It's always great to have a personal referral. Also, you can also ask your banker, who do you use, or do you have a realtor that you know of, or the lending officer at that bank? Who do you use for real estate agents? Do you have anyone? And the third thing you can always do is drop into your local real estate office. There's tons of real estate offices everywhere in every neighborhood. You can even walk in or call, ask to speak to the manager of that office and say, I'm a prospective buyer. Could you please assign me a realtor? I'd like to come meet with 1 or 2. Who do you recommend? That's how I would do it if I had no knowledge of any awareness of any realtors in my neighborhood. You know, yeah.
Okay.
Word of mouth is always a good thing.
Right.
You know.
Now, would you say it's a good idea for a realtor to represent both the buyer and the seller? As a first-time buyer, if I had that opportunity, should I say, no, I think I'd rather go with separate realtors on that?
If you're representing the buyer and the seller, which is called dual representation, uh, from an economic point of view for that realtor, of course, it's going to be double money for him. He would get the commission on both, et cetera, et cetera. However, I always recommend that there are two agents involved because it just levels the playing field. It makes the negotiation process a lot smoother, a lot fairer, and it also gives each person equity in negotiation. So your client wants to make sure you have a fiduciary duty to work for that buyer or that seller, and both parties always want to know that you're in it for them. So you want to create a happy family. I always recommend, hey, you know what? It's better to have. I personally like having a realtor on both ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're ready to look at a home, and I've picked the first one that I like.
Right.
What is it that I should be looking for outside of what it is that I particularly want in the home? What's the most important components as a realtor you would say that I should look out for in terms of picking home that's not brand new?
Well, if you're looking at the home, first of all, look at the home and, of course, look at the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood. One of the things that I've always told people, and sometimes people do it on their own, they will drive into the area, they'll see the home maybe for sale that has a sign, they'll say, oh, you know what, I think I like that one. There may be one or two neighbors out doing some yard work, driving up. Interview the neighbors. Say, hey, you know what, I'm interested in buying in this area. Could you tell me a little bit about it? Even before you even step on the property. And a lot of times, too, if they have kids, school districts really make a big deal for some families. Some families will send their kids to private school, maybe to a charter school or to the local public school. That also really creates a neighborhood. They want to know that their kids are safe, that there's a good school district, and of course, transportation nearby. Stores make a big deal. And when you're starting to look at the property, try to find out. You can walk around it. You can look at the grounds, look at the upkeep of the yard. A lot of stuff from the eye will give you good information on how the property. You may not see it yet in the inside, but from the outside you can tell. Look at the walls. I mean, look at paint chipping. Look at everything from a standpoint of, okay, does it need, how much work do I think it's going to take? But a lot of times, just because it may look maybe a little bit here and there, it might be cracks here, maybe the paint's, don't just toss it away. The neighborhood will support, a good neighborhood will support that house. And I always tell people, don't just look at the house, look at everything, the big broad picture, because that's really important.
Okay. Now, as I would look at the whole neighborhood and the house
Right.
as well, if there are things that are wrong, say, for example, there is that crack in the ceiling, or
Right.
maybe the tub that's in the bathroom is really not up,
Right.
not too clean, not to par.
Right.
How can I use that to perhaps lower the actual overall asking price?
Well, one of the best terms that I've always heard in real estate sales is it's all negotiable. It's all negotiable. If the buyer remembers that everything's negotiable, just because the price says 350, 450, 500, look at everything in the home and ask yourself, you can even, ballpark it. You may have someone in your home that's, or friend, I'm sorry, you may have a friend or a family member that is in construction. I had one particular client that actually took a handyman with her before she even made the offer and said, I really want to buy this property. How much would it cost to patch the wall? There's a hole in the wall. How much do you think it would cost to put the window screens? And how much would it cost to fix the garage? There was a lever of some sort on the mechanism of the garage door, and he gave her a ballpark figure. It actually gave her some comfort and some ease, and we were able to make the offer on the property, because sometimes what looks like it could be a lot of money is really not that much money.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you suggest that I have that in writing or just word of mouth?
If you know, like, and trust the person that will do the work for you, I think word of mouth is good. But also, most professionals that are licensed, if they're a licensed contractor, will give you a written estimate. I mean, we hope they will. A lot of times people take what needs repair into consideration into their offer. So they think about those things too.
Right, and you should probably have that in writing.
When you make the offer, let's say you're going to buy like this house right here, and let's say we need about, let's say let's say the person says, well, you know what, it's going to take about $15,000 in paint, carpet, this and that. Uh, you don't necessarily have to put that in writing into the seller, but you basically offer what you feel is fair, and then that's when the negotiation takes place. And you're basically the condition will dictate the price.
Okay. So now I'm ready to make an offer, Frank.
Okay, let's make an offer.
Let's make an offer. What's that process?
Well, we are going to actually write a contract, okay, an offer to purchase the property, a purchase agreement, and it's currently an 8-page contract. We write it out. The realtor who represents the buyer submits it to the selling agent. The selling agent will take that contract to their client, the seller. They'll negotiate. They will go through it. We would like a response within 1 to 3 days from the seller. And in that process, of course, this is what I always tell buyers. When you're going to make your offer, submit not just your purchase agreement, submit that letter of pre-qualification from your bank to give the seller that comfort that you do qualify for this property. And it's also a good idea. It's an old practice. You can also make a copy of your deposit check, and just a copy of it. Submit that in your email or your fax with your agent to the prospective selling agent. That gives the seller, even though it's in writing, it'll say how much they're putting down, how much earnest money you're going to put down, what's your deposit, how much you're going to put down. But it just says, oh, he's going to put down 10,000, 15,000. And one other thing too is sometimes a realtor representing the seller will ask, to see maybe copies of bank statements. You can do that too, just to give. It also gives a added security. It's not always asked for. It may be asked for.
Now tell us the importance of that. I would think it's more so about how you pay your bills monthly as opposed to do you have money in the bank?
Right. It really is a tool for the buyer, especially if they really want that house, to show the seller, yes, we do have the money, we do qualify, we're ready to. We are a serious buyer. Really, we are a serious buyer. We'd like to have we'd like to buy your property. Yeah.
And that speaks to even your credit, because there are some people out there who really like to pay cash for everything, and that's always not necessarily a good thing because you don't build a month-to-month payment thing for your credit, and it actually doesn't do anything for your credit report.
Correct. In my career as a realtor, I have seen a few cash buyers, not a lot of cash buyers. In the last probably year and a half, I did run into some competition with other realtors where their client did offer all cash, and sometimes the question is, man, where did they get all this money? Where has this money been? How did they make this cash offer? But it's funny because you're scratching your head going, golly, this property is $179,000 for this condo, and they're offering $179 all cash, and sometimes you can't compete with that because they don't have to get a loan, if they're going all cash, and but at the same time too, the seller doesn't necessarily have to take the all cash offer. He can say, well, you know what, I like the all cash offer, but this buyer number 2 does qualify for the same property. They're going to but they're going to give me $195 for the property. So I'm going to go with buyer 2 regardless of the all cash offer. There was a period of time last year in 2012 where I heard some of my fellow realtors go, in this market right now, it's a buyer's market.